What's up, collectors? Welcome back to Films by Color. It's the end of the month. Spooktober 2024 is over. I watched as many horror movies as I could this month, and I have a ranking list on my Letterboxd if you want to see the full list of everything I watched. But in this video, I'm going to talk about the best stuff. I'm talking about my favorite things that I watched this month. I would recommend all of these to anyone watching this video, and I would also recommend owning these. I'm going to hang on to all these. I'm not going to get rid of any of them because I liked all of these quite a bit. And we're going to start right off the bat with a silent film, a silent German film from 1920, going all the way back to one of the very first horror films ever. It is The Golem. That's what it was called here when it was released in America, but the original title is The Golem, How He Came Into the World, because this is not just one of the first horror films. This film has a lot of firsts. It was also the first horror franchise, and it's also the first horror prequel, because this is not the first film in the franchise. This is the third film, but it's also a prequel. This is such a weird franchise. The first two films are unfortunately lost from 1915 and 1917. We don't have those films anymore. Thankfully, we do have this one, and this is the origin story of The Golem. I highly recommend you look into this franchise. It's fascinating how it came together. The first one's a horror film, the second one's like a bizarre comedy, and then the third one is a prequel, but also kind of a remake of the first film. It's crazy, but this one by itself is amazing. It's a very, very early horror film. It's about a Jewish rabbi who sees in the stars trouble for his people, and he creates this creature out of clay, this mythic creature, the Golem, which is a Jewish folktale. It comes out of Jewish folklore, and through the creation of this creature, he's able to save his people. But then things start going south. The creature starts fighting back, rebelling against its master. It's very similar to the Frankenstein story. Frankenstein was highly inspired by the Golem story, and you can see some very early influence on James Whale's film, the way he makes that film. He's definitely pulling from this. I saw on Letterboxd someone described this as halfway between Georges Méliès and James Whale, and I totally agree with that. There's so many early special effects and camera tricks in here that would be right at home in a Georges Méliès film. So I highly recommend The Golem. It's great. It's short, it's quick, it's stylistically brilliant. It looks amazing, especially the scene where they summon the Golem. There's all kinds of incredible special effects and so much history in this that I'm so glad we have it. Maybe we'll get a 4K restoration at some point, but this Blu-ray looks incredible, and I had such a fun time with The Golem. Finally checked that one off my list. Been wanting to watch that one for a couple years now. So happy I finally got to it. The next one I've got to recommend is The Uninvited from Criterion. This is a simple ghost story from 1944. It follows a brother and sister who moved to this beautiful cliffside mansion, and they're not sure why they got such a good deal on the house. Turns out the house is haunted, and this is such an interesting way to do a haunted house story. It's very early, like I said, 1944, and this is kind of ahead of its time with how seriously it takes the ghost story, how personal it is. We are fresh off of the 30s with all the pre-code horror stuff that was mostly just shocking for the sake of shock and trying to push the boundaries that way. This, though, is a lot more subtle with what it does with the ghost. It's focused a lot more on the characters, the relationships. There is a romance that forms with the brother character, the main lead, who's played by Ray Milland, who is great in this. A lot of Cary Grant mannerisms in his face and his line delivery. He's got some great dry humor delivery in this. I did like the humor. I did like the personal relationships with the characters, and I loved how they treated the ghost. The ghost is genuinely creepy. There's a lot of interesting, creepy stuff they do with sound and visuals. There's actually a great visual effect for the ghost, and there is some influence that it has on one of the characters, causing her to do some self-harm and put her in danger. It was very interesting for the time. I was not expecting to love this as much as I did. I was expecting to have a good time, but this was actually really good, and it stood out in the Criterion collection for sure. I haven't seen anything else quite like it in the collection. So The Uninvited, highly recommend it. Put it on your list for next year, for Halloween, or just whenever. You can watch it whenever. It's a great, great film. Next up, we're going over to Deaf Crocodile, one of my favorite labels. You guys know I love Deaf Crocodile. Love their weird, off-the-beaten-path animated films that they've been putting out lately, and this is one of their early ones. This is The Pied Piper. I've had this for so long. Finally got to watch it this year, and it did not disappoint. It's great. It's beautiful in a creepy, disturbing kind of way. It takes the classic fairy tale and makes it more adult. It does add some, very adult themes in here. There's sexual assault in here. There's murder in here. This is not one to watch with the family, but if you love that kind of fairy tale storytelling and you want a little bit more of a darker take, if you love entirely unique animation that you haven't seen anywhere else, this is created by Jiří Barta, I believe is how you say his name. He is a Czech animator who only has done like 3 films, and every time he makes something, he does a completely different style of animation. He never repeats himself. This is done in stop motion animation with these wooden characters, these completely made out of wood characters with like gears and kind of a clockwork. The whole castle and city is like made out of these gears. It kind of looks like the inside of a clock. It's fascinating. And on top of that, all of the rats in the film are real rats, either real rats or like stop motion animated taxidermized rats. It is fascinating. So much fun to look at. Very disturbing. If you have a problem with rodents, you may not be able to make it through this one, but I had a great time. This was perfect for me. It's also very short. I believe it's only 50 minutes. Yeah, 53 minutes. And I haven't even said this yet. Completely dialogue free. There are no languages spoken in the film. The characters emote and they make noises, but you can kind of figure out what they're saying and what they mean without understanding their language. They're not really saying anything. They're just kind of mumbling gibberish, but it's really well done and super creative. And like I said, one of a kind. I promise you're not going to see anything else like this. Check out the Pied Piper if you can find a copy. I know this one's out of print, but I think they still have a standard version that you can buy. So highly recommend that one. All right, next up, we're back to Criterion with All That Money Can Buy. This is a very recent one, just came out. And speaking of fables, this is another fable, kind of along the lines of It's a Wonderful Life or The Phantom Carriage, if you've seen that. This is a tale of a guy who, tale as old as time, makes a deal with the devil, gets everything he ever dreamed of, and of course, everything starts going downhill after a period of time. His family starts to fall into ruin. All of his finances go down the drain. He's just obsessed with money. He's got a mistress that he's courting around. Everything's going terrible for him. But what makes this really stand out, besides that just classic tale that is really fun to see play out on screen, the performances are incredible. Maybe not so much the lead guy. He is a little bit of a standard kind of just everyman, but I think that's the point. I think you need someone like that in this tale. But there are 2 standout performances in here, and that is Walter Houston as the devil and Edward Arnold as Daniel Webster. That is the other name that this film is known by, The Devil and Daniel Webster, and they are both excellent in this film. The devil, genuinely creepy, genuinely a little bit disturbing, a little scary, but also funny in a dark, twisted kind of way. You love him every time he's on screen. You love to hate him. And then also Daniel Webster, played by Edward Arnold, is this incredible, like larger than life politician character who always has the right thing to say in every situation. Seeing those 2 guys go against each other in the last act, it kind of ends in this like really interesting like courtroom case where you've got the devil on one side and Daniel Webster on the other, kind of vying for this guy's soul. I love this stuff. I love this kind of supernatural, over-the-top take on a very simple morality tale about family and community and taking care of each other. It was perfect. This was everything I wanted it to be. I went into this already knowing I would love it, and it lived up to all of my high expectations. I can't recommend All That Money Can Buy enough. It's a quick 106-minute in, you're out. You got everything you need. Wonderful performances. Perfect little tale that will not disappoint. This next one is the most obscure thing I'm going to talk about in this video, even more obscure than the German silent film, The Golem. This is Inferno from Italy, all the way back from 1911. This is apparently the first feature-length horror film. So this is a feature-length silent film based on Dante's Inferno from the Divine Comedy. If you know the story, it's basically just Dante being escorted through all the different levels of hell to see how all the different people are being tortured there. But it is done where every single scene is like breathtaking and a brand new visual effect that I was not expecting. I kept thinking that I was going to be prepared for what the next scene was going to be, and I never was. It was fresh the entire time. Like I said, it's feature length. It's 72 minutes for 1911 is crazy. Talk about Georges Méliès, like I was talking about earlier. Most of his stuff is very short, like 7 to 10 minutes, very short films, like Trip to the Moon, if you've seen that. This is like one of those that just keeps going and going on for 72 minutes. I, as a big visual effects nerd, loved everything I was seeing. You can see right here on the front, you've got forced perspective shots with giant demon characters. You've got incredible puppetry and costumes with like creature effects. There's a Cerberus scene, the three-headed dog. You have got demons with wings being flown around on wire rigs. You have got pyrotechnics. You've got a literal scene where like fire is falling from the sky, like all around real people in the scene. There are early paint out effects. Like there's this one circle of hell where all these characters are missing limbs, so they're like paint out their arms. This you can see right here on the back, his head is painted out and he's holding a head in his hand. That's crazy. That's literally painting out each frame of the film. Incredible stuff. Like I said, there's not really any story. You're just going through and seeing how all of these different kinds of sinners are being tortured based on their, specific sin that they struggled with in their life. And I was never bored. I don't really know what I was expecting from this. I was maybe expecting like a film history film, like something that was interesting to learn about and watch and see how it like influenced other stuff. But actually, as a piece, I was highly entertained by it. Again, completely different from anything else on this list, and I highly recommend Dante's Inferno. So happy that TerrorVision put out this wonderful release of it earlier this year, and I hope they do more stuff like this. Go back to very, very early horror cinema, and I will absolutely pick more of these up. Incredible release, tons of different soundtracks on here that you can watch the film with. 3 different soundtracks plus an audio commentary, and 3 different restorations you can look at as well. Incredible release. Highly recommend that one. I don't know if it's still in print, but find yourself a copy of that. Next, I've got a pair of films from the same director, Uri Hertz, who is a Czech director. Both of these are from Second Run, which is an amazing company that puts out lots and lots of Czech films. I can't wait to get more films from them. I hope they put out more of his films in the future, because I absolutely loved both of these. These are both gothic horror Czech fairy tales from the 60s and 70s. This first one is The Virgin and the Monster, which is his take on the Beauty and the Beast story. And then the second one is Morgiana, which is a dark, twisted tale of 2 sisters. I had a blast with both of these. Both visually stunning, incredible visuals. I love how he shoots these very, like I said, gothic horror imagery. Both look incredible. I have no issues with the visuals at all, but what I also love about these Czech fairy tale films from this time period, I had the same thing with 3 Wishes for Cinderella last year. They are not afraid to rewrite things, ground things a little bit, make things make a little bit more sense. Like a lot of times when you go into these fairy tale films, you'll just kind of have to accept that this is how people act in this universe. And sometimes it's completely out of character and it doesn't make any sense. But in this version, they really focus on the characters and make it believable, get to the places that the fairy tale needs to get to, but in a more coherent way where the characters can stay more consistent. Much more focus on the personal relationships. In the Beauty and the Beast story, you really get time with Julia and Beast. She's not called Beauty in this. Their relationship grows much more naturally, you get more time with them, and I think it's much more tragic. They do an incredibly different thing with the Beast. He's completely different than anything you've ever seen. I don't want to spoil it because it is a reveal in the film, but he's treated straight up like a horror, classic horror monster, and much more tragic, and just a lot of it makes more sense in this, and I had a great time with it. If you're very familiar with the story, check it out. I was hesitant to even watch it because I love the Jean Cocteau version from 46 so much. I think it's so perfect. Like I don't like the Disney versions. I don't need that. So I didn't think I would need another one, but this is so different and so unique that I love both of them, and I won't mind going back to either of them. And Morgiana is very similar in style, but also in the story. It's also a dual protagonist piece between the 2 main sisters, both played by the same actress, and she does such a good job that I couldn't even tell if it was the same actress or not. I had to look it up afterwards. She's incredible. There is one good, sweet, wholesome sister and one very jealous, evil, wicked sister that is just trying to take the other sister down the entire time, gets violent, but also somehow makes her very tragic and very likable. It's amazing. It's really, really cool. Love the visuals, but I was very surprised by the emphasis on the characters. That's something I wasn't necessarily expecting, and I think both of these actually hold up and are very relevant to today with the way they handle the female characters, and they're both very tragic and very sympathetic and very relatable, which is so weird. This is like so over the top with its dark gothic horror and fairy tale stuff. They're not afraid of that. They don't shy away from the magic or the fantasy elements, but they also put great characters at the heart of it, which I love. It's perfect. These are great. I will definitely be going back to these in the future many times. Loved his 2 films, and I can't wait to watch more Uri Hertz films. I just bought The Cremator in the recent Criterion Flash sale. I can't wait to check that one out as well. But if you haven't seen these, I highly recommend these second run releases. I think they're both still in print on their website and very cheap. Second run puts out very cheap releases. Get yourself a handful of them. They're putting out great stuff. And this last one I have to talk about is probably the biggest surprise of the month. I was expecting to like this. It has a really high rating on Letterboxd. It's in the Criterion Collection, so I was expecting to have a good time. I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. This blew me away. I was completely transfixed for the entire 3-hour runtime. It is Qui Dawn from 1964, directed by Masaki Kobayashi. This is an incredible film. I don't usually throw around the word masterpiece, but I feel like you could go ahead and use it with this one. This, like I said, is from Kobayashi, who is normally known for his very sober political dramas that are very grounded and focused on very human-like situations. This is not that. This is 4 different fairy tales. It's an anthology film of 4 different ghost stories based on actual classic folklore, and I loved every minute of it. All 4 different stories are kind of based on different kinds of human interactions with ghosts. You have some ghosts that are just people who have died and come back to life. You have other ghosts who are these kind of elemental creatures, these godlike deities that are just messing with humans. All kinds of different ghost stories, and they're all taken straight off the page. They don't try to modernize it. I actually read a few of these online afterwards, and they are straight off the page. They're great. The production design is immaculate. It's incredible. I was expecting something similar to the Ballad of Narayama, if you've seen that, where all the sets are built indoors. But this takes it to a whole nother level. He apparently used an entire airplane hangar to build the sets for this. So they're all indoor built sets, but they all take place outside. So they're building forests, and the matte paintings are incredible. The production design, the sets, the costume design is all on point. Nothing ever takes you out. It's all so meticulously crafted. It looks amazing. The acting is so good. Even though the stories are simple, the acting is so good that it makes the characters compelling. The sound design is also another huge factor in this film. The score and the sound effects are made intentionally dissonant and kind of out of sync with what you're seeing on screen. Sound effects will be out of sync. There'll be long stretches of just silence, and then the score will come in when you're not expecting it, and that adds to the atmosphere and the horror in some scenes. There's just a general creepiness and unnerving quality around the whole film, which is awesome. I would love to make this a yearly tradition to watch around Halloween. I think it's a perfect Halloween watch. It's classic ghost stories. It goes as far back as humans, basically. It's amazing. Highly recommended. Super colorful, visually stunning. Like I said, I was never bored the entire time. It's 3 hours long. It does kind of help that it's broken up into 4 different stories, 4 different chapters. If you needed to break it up or split it up, I feel like you could. If you don't want to sit through the whole 3-hour runtime, maybe break it up over 4 nights in next October or something. Whatever way you want to watch it, just watch it because it's great. My only gripe with this Criterion release, the essay in here is great. The supplements are great as well. My only gripe with it is kind of this cover. I'm not crazy about the artwork. This is taken from the opening titles. There's kind of this ink dropped in water effect that goes through the different colors, and it kind of goes through the entire essay sheet here as well. It's cool. I like the reference, but there's so many stunning visuals in this that I would have loved to see some of that translated to the artwork on here. I feel like you could do an incredible Arrow box set with some incredible artwork pulling from the film, but that's fine. That's minor. That's a minor gripe as just a physical media nerd, but the movie itself is awesome. And if you don't have it, get it this month. We're right in the middle of the November Criterion 50% off sale. You can grab this one. You can't grab all of these, unfortunately. Not a lot of these are Criterions, but you can grab All the Money Can Buy and the Uninvited as well. But I recommend all of these releases, even if they're not from Criterion. All these other boutique labels are putting out great films. These are the best things I watched this month. Highly recommend you check out all of them. I know we're out of spooky season now, but I think you could watch these all year long. They're all great horror films, all completely unique. That's what I looked for this month. When I was putting together my list, I wanted some I wanted something I'd never seen before, and I got like 10 of them. So I was very, very happy with my picks this month. Hopefully you enjoyed listening to me ramble on about them. Hopefully I kept it kind of interesting. I want to do more of these recommendation videos. I've got some very good feedback on my last one that I did, so I'm going to try to keep doing it. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for hitting that like button and the subscribe button. Always appreciate that. Leave me a comment down below so we can talk more about these films. And until next time, keep collecting, and I'll be back with another video real soon.